Good evening and thanks for staying tuned. Welcome to our COVID-19 update at this hour. My name is Ladi Akiri Oluwale. Here are the highlights. Federal government asks Nigerian businesses to access financial recovery lifelines from the Central Bank of Nigeria to the tune of 150 billion naira. More Nigerian returnees expected this time from the United Kingdom tomorrow, as Foreign Minister says arrangements for their comfort has been made. World Health Organization warns that almost 200,000 people could die in Africa in the first year of an uncontained COVID-19 pandemic, as almost 268,000 people are already dead worldwide from COVID-19. Just a month ago, the Director General of the National Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, said the agency aims to test about 2 million people by July, and to achieve this, 50,000 tests will have to be performed in each state of the Federation within the period. So far, about 22,000 tests have been done. Nigeria sits amongst countries with the least number of standard coronavirus tests conducted worldwide. A slowdown in global manufacturing of medical supplies, coupled with a high demand, have made procurement even more difficult. Today, we're going to focus on the issues of testing methods in the country. But first, let's take a look at some of the other stories of the day. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says the stimulus package introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, to help mitigate the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on households, micro, small and medium business enterprises has been made easy to access. Speaking today in Abuja, Mr. Boss Mustafa explained that eligible participants were households and existing enterprises with verifiable evidence of business activities adversely affected as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The eligibility criteria is provided for on the website of the Central Bank. Like I said, there are two packages. The first 100 billion is designed to deal with major hospitals and pharmaceutical companies. The essence is that after COVID, or even in the processes of COVID, we will be able to build our health infrastructure. That's why that money is made available for our major manufacturing companies to begin to explore the possibility of manufacturing drugs sufficient to deal with COVID-19 and other health-related matters. The second component, that's the 50 billion, is the one that is designed for SMEs. Even within the context of those SMEs, there is a package that is designed for households. And within the households, they have the mini, they have the micro, and they have the micro plus. The mini, the amount that you assess under the mini scheme is 500,000 for households that can show evidence that their businesses were impacted by COVID-19. For the for the micro, it's from 500,000 to 1.5 million. Part of the eligibility is justification or showing proof of the fact that your businesses have been affected by the COVID-19. And for the micro plus, it's 1.5 to 3 million. But under the SMEs, the maximum you can access is 25 million. The essence of the package is to provide a lifeline for our people who have been adversely affected by COVID-19. So I believe my advice is that we should access the website of the Central Bank or visit any of the national microfinance banks, because it's coordinated by National Microfinance Bank, which is also an agency of the Central Bank.
Another set of stranded Nigerians will be coming home tomorrow, but this time from the United Kingdom, and that's according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Oyema. Mr. Oyema says the Nigerians will be quarantined in Abuja, even though they will arrive in Lagos. He also says those awaiting evacuation in India should disregard any directive requesting them to make payments into individual accounts for their flights.
The reality is that, yes, there is a Mr. Horsfall who works in the Nigerian High Commission in India, but no, he did not publish anything inviting Nigerians to pay money to him or to an account. We directed every embassy and mission to invite Nigerians in those countries to indicate an interest, if they have any, in being evacuated to back home, and informing them that they would have to pay to the airline that is eventually chosen to carry out the evacuation process. So our High Commission in India is in the process of negotiating with a number of airlines, and I would like to also inform those members of the National Assembly who raised the issue that Nigerian Airlines are amongst those that have been invited to quote. So they will select an airline, and Nigerians interested will pay directly to the airline. And Mr. Horsfall at no time indicated, at least to the knowledge of his ambassador or any other person, did not invite people to pay to any account. Another flight, in fact, tomorrow, coming in from the UK, and this batch will be coming to Abuja, but they'll be landing in Lagos first. That's the plan, and then we'll be ferried to Abuja. The reasons are these. We've been very mindful of the costs. Abuja offers us better economy in terms of hotel rates. We would just ask them to bear with us, for this for 2 weeks. We will make arrangements to facilitate the return to Lagos of those who need to be in Lagos rather than Abuja. But the passengers really have to bear with us.
Commonwealth Secretary General Ms. Patricia Scotland has commended the leadership and commitment of African leaders in the fight against COVID-19, while also calling attention to the need for universal health coverage following the economic challenges as a result. Our correspondent, Millicent Walker, spoke to Ms. Scotland via video conference, where she also spoke on the COVID-19 Response Center for Commonwealth member countries.
We have to keep on working on these things, because if we are to get people back to work as quickly as we can, then we need to do that safely. But we also have to look at the economic challenges that are coming our way and to work out how we can best address those. And we spoke about some of them already, but if you think about it, the fact that the experts have warned that we have between $1 and $2 trillion shortfall in the global income this year, while the world trade could contract by between 13 and 32%. These are huge issues, and that's why I think the information that we're trying to share on the Coronavirus Response Center is going to make a real difference. I would say we absolutely have to focus on universal health coverage. That is something all of our health ministers identified before this virus, and we know also it's what we needed to respond better to things like the Ebola epidemic. So we have to learn, because the tragedy for us is this pandemic may not be our last pandemic. And we have to not only deal with this one, We've got to make sure that if anything else happens, we're ready to deal with the next one too. The Commonwealth has always stuck together, and through our solidarity, through our genius, and through our sharing, we have been able to come up with the solutions which give us a brighter future. The last generation who faced something as serious as this was back in the 1940s. But we need to demonstrate that we are the worthy successors of our grandparents.
Patricia Scotland, Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Back here in Nasarawa State, 46 COVID-19 tests of 50 conducted have come back negative, with the other tests still being awaited. Governor Abdullahi Sule revealed this at the State Executive Council meeting at the Government House in Lafia. The governor added that the samples of the state lawmakers are not part of the 46 and theirs is still being awaited. Our correspondent Halima Gayam brings us an update.
With over 10 confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Nasarawa State and 1 fatality, the state government is reinforcing measures to contain further spread of the virus. Among the measures taken is the lockdown of Nasarawa local government area where the deceased lawmaker hails from, which is the first fatality, to enable contact tracing and sampling. The House of Assembly has also been shut for 1 week and it has also been completely decontaminated. All the House of Assembly members have gone into isolation and their result is being awaited. The use of face masks has also been made compulsory. Thousands of Almajiris have been repatriated from the state to other states, and those who have come in from other states have also been isolated. To begin from tomorrow, over 2,000 Almajiris from the state would be transported to Kano and Katsina states. Other previous restrictions to include curfew between 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., ban on social gatherings, ban on interstate traveling, enforcement of social distancing order, closure of markets and businesses except for essential service providers, suspension of commercial motorcycles and tricycles, intensified patrols and surveillance by security personnel to ensure compliance and to maintain status quo. Earlier today, the governor convened an executive council meeting to enable office holders brainstorm on how to contribute financially to the fight against COVID-19 in the state.
I want to announce my own personal contribution of 10 million naira to the COVID-19.
And after hours of deliberations, office holders agreed unanimously to donate 50% of their salaries to commence from June for 3 months to the fight against COVID-19 in the state. Results for 46 tests have come out and they are all negative as announced by the governor before the EXCO meeting, and other results are being awaited. From Lafia, the Nasarawa State capital, Halima Gayam, Channels Television.
A former president of the Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists of Nigeria, Dr. Godswill Okara, says Nigeria still has a very low COVID-19 testing capacity, which means the country does not really know how fast the disease is spreading and cannot put adequate measures in place to combat it. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has been criticized for having one of the slowest testing methods in the world. Just over 20 testing centers and estimated testing capacity of 50,000, which is small considering Nigeria's over 200 million population. Dr. Okara spoke with our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, on some of the benefits of Nigeria's testing methods and the way government can ramp up testing in the country.
For the enforcement.
The Director General of the NCDC says Nigeria has a testing capacity of 50,000 people daily. The key word is capacity, because according to reports, the actual number of people being tested daily is very low. It is particularly hard on the Nigerian government as they are being compared with countries like South Africa, Ghana and Senegal, who boast of mass testing and $1 test kits. To find out what can be done about Nigeria's testing method, we speak to Dr. Godswill Okara, a medical laboratory scientist and the former president of the National Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists of Nigeria.
Yes, South Africa is doing tremendously well in the sense that they have mobile PCR testing facilities. Ghana is doing what we call pooling system. if you have 10 samples from 10 different individuals, you take a little bit of each of the 10 from the 10 individuals and pull together. You are testing only one. If it turns out negative, you take it that all the 10 are negative. If it turns out positive, you now go again and test individually all the 10 to discover which of the 10 is positive that gave the positive result. There is a drawback in that. That method is prone to what we call false negative result. Our own testing system is better, even though it could be slower, but when you upscale the number of testing sites, in the long run, it will be far better. The latest version of this system is about $79,000. So if you add up that with the automated DNA extraction system, that's about another $27,000. It is not beyond a state government. Every state government can set up a molecular testing center.
If those testing figures remain low, will there be a need for another lockdown for better containment of the pandemic? Kayla Nagwa, Channels Television News.
And our correspondent Kayla Megwa joins me now in our Abuja studios. Good evening, Kayla.
Good evening, Ladi.
From your report, it's obvious that Dr. Okara seems to think that we could do much better with this issue of testing and the testing methods. Did he tell you specifically what exactly he expects now to be done if we are to achieve the target of 2 million tests in 90 days?
Yes, he did, Ladi, and he was very straightforward. He said the states have to be able to provide testing centers. Talked about the inconvenience of states having to gather samples and then everyone sends it to Abuja. He said that's the reason why many people don't get their tests on time, because, you know, I was asking him how long it takes for this test to be done for COVID-19, and he said it's 5 hours. You know, so I said, so why do people complain about 1 week, 2 weeks, and they're not getting? He said, look, the problem is we don't have enough testing centers, and then when states get samples, they have to send to the NCDC, they have to transport it here. That actually causes delays, and you know, a lot of people probably don't understand how cumbersome that would be on the NCDC. According to him, if the state governments actually invest in molecular testing labs in each of the states, and that was why he was reading out how much it costs, you know, because he had that testing capacity right behind him, and he said if they're able to invest in this, then you know, we'll have better testing capacity. The Minister of State for Health had complained about, you know, the sciences, the lab sciences that are needed to be able to, you know, diagnose COVID-19. Okay, so I asked him about that, and he said, well, that there are many people who are idle right now. There are many people who can actually give their expertise in this regard. That way the states can help to reduce the pressure on the center when it comes to, you know, testing across the country. He said if we do that, we can actually meet 2 million a day.
I have got just a minute to ask you this. So going forward, what did he give you any idea of, or what kind of a number he felt was realistic?
Well, the first thing he did was tell me that it was impossible for us to be doing 50,000, given the number of testing. We have just over 20 across the country, and he said it's realistic. He said 50,000 is realistic, but with the kind of facilities we have right now, and you know, with the number of people that need to be tested, and that was another point he made, that we're not really seeing how much this disease is being spread because we don't have enough testing. But clearly, he noted that this is not just a Nigerian problem; this is a problem across the world. But if the testing capacity is ramped up across the country, then we'll be able to understand the trajectory that the disease is taking, and you know, put measures in place to actually stop the spread and contain it in the country. So basically, he's saying we're in a lot of trouble right now if we're not doing the right thing. We don't have enough testing going on, and he said that's something that needs to be sorted out immediately, Ladi.
Thank you very much, Kayla. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reporting there from Abuja about the vexed issue of testing and testing methods. Thank you very much, Kayla. We'll take a break. When we'll come back, we'll go deeper into some of the other issues that concern testing and testing methods. Please stay on with us. Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back. On April the 7th, 2020, the World Health Organization, the WHO, listed the first 2 diagnostic tests for emergency use during the COVID-19 pandemic. The tests are the Genesig Real-Time PCR Coronavirus COVID-19 and the Cobas SARS-CoV-2 Qualitative Assay for use on Cobas systems. The WHO's Assistant Director General for Medicines and Health Products, Dr. Mariangela Simao, said then, the emergency use listing of these products will enable countries to increase testing with quality-assured diagnostics. Facilitating access to accurate tests is essential for countries to address the pandemic with the best tools possible. Coming back home to Nigeria, the NCDC indicates that the country is implementing COVID-19 diagnosis by molecular RT-PCR testing in 21, expected to be 22 at the close of business today, testing centers across the country. I'm being joined from our Abuja studios by a medical laboratory scientist who is also the National Publicity Secretary of the Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists of Nigeria, Dr. Ifeanyi Kesmer. Good evening, Dr. Kesmer. Thank you for your time.
Ladi, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Our viewers, good evening also.
22,492 samples have been tested in Nigeria as at May the 6th. As at April 16th, a total of 6,649 had been tested. Now, the first question is, are we using the right method if we need to find out how many people are infected in an efficient and effective way?
Thank you, Ladi. The testing method deployed by the National Center for Disease Control is one that fits perfectly into the recommendation by the World Health Organization. However, we are not using it efficiently and effectively. There's no problem with the testing method, but there's a problem with the approach to the testing method. What is the problem? As I talk now, we have backlog of specimen. The report from Nasarawa alludes to that. They are still waiting for specimen submitted many days ago, and they are yet to come. We have our ears on the ground as a professional group, pivotal professional group in medical laboratory testing in Nigeria. I can also tell you as at yesterday, it was also published in the dailies that they have a backlog of well over 2,500 specimens unprocessed. And so what is the challenge? We started with about 5 molecular testing laboratories in Nigeria. Good 18, the leadership provided by Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu had led to today, as of today, following today's laboratory activation, we now have 22 laboratories that have capacity for molecular testing. That's wonderful. From the figures we read out between April and now, you can see an exponential increase from 6,000 to well over 20,000 tests already done in a short time. Now, what is the challenge? The challenge we have here is largely that of manpower. Do we have people in Nigeria with competencies, capacities for molecular testing? Yes, we do. We have abundant medical laboratory scientists out there that can be deployed and used to ramp up testing. The major disconnect is human resource. I do not understand the reluctance at engaging the human resource we have in abundance in Nigeria. On this same platform, I had said we have close to 30,000 medical laboratory scientists, young medical laboratory scientists, willing to volunteer on this particular assignment. We must have our laboratories do 247. If we have our laboratories do 247, we should be able to mop up the backlog. For example, just last week, the NCDC lab in Gadoa activated the Roche Covers, which is the second method as approved by World Health Organization in April. That means that machine alone is able to do 5,000 in a day. So the challenge we have here is that of under capacity utilization. And why do we have under capacity utilization? Because we are reluctant at deploying our soldiers, deploying the ready hands we have. we must stop politicizing the COVID-19 pandemic battle. Because if we do, and we're frugal about engaging people, we will really not be able to give a clear picture of the morbidity in country. And you see, with what has happened, we have had ease lockdown. The impact of the ease lockdown will only become available by the end of May, because that is when the samples will have come in and the test result will begin to become available. So I expect that part of what must be done is, can we profile people that we say have capacity for molecular testing? Can we begin to use the right people to provide the testing? It's also part of the challenge. I'll tell you why. Today, during the PTF COVID press briefing, the DG NCDC said something that is unacceptable globally. What do I mean by that? It's a gross non-conformity for you to conduct tests on people, and you say you call them to give their result verbally. It is actually a major breach of laboratory quality management system for you to do a test and there's no documentation of that test, on the side of the person whose specimen you are taking. And so that is because we're beginning to worry about who are those indeed behind the testing, particularly what we saw in Kano, where the secretary to the state task force was the one signing out laboratory results in conjunction with the state epidemiologist. If they were sending report to NCDC, that would be right. But signing on the laboratory form, a few things need to be put straight by NCDC. There has to be a template for reporting of laboratory results for COVID-19 testing. There has also to be the responsibility of the person performing the test being the one to sign the test for issues about vicarious liability, so we can vouch for the throughput of the result. Again, is that Nigerians are being
Dr. Ifeanyi Kasper,
there is no state in Nigeria
you haven't actually given me the opportunity to break it. I didn't break it with any question apart from the first one, because you went on to answer even the questions, some of the questions I was going to ask. But at this point, I want to thank you for joining us. What you've said is food for thought, particularly what you talked about in terms of the documentation of test results and those being handed over to those whose samples have been taken. Thank you very much for your time. At this time, Dr. Kasper Ifeanyi is a medical lab scientist, is the National Publicity Secretary of the Association of Medical Lab Scientists of Nigeria, and he joined us from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much for your time. Now, let's take a look at what is going on in the country at the moment. With 195 new confirmed cases announced by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control within the last 24 hours, the total number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria stands at 3,145. Of this figure, 2,508 are the active cases being managed, while 534 COVID-19 patients have been discharged after treatment. Unfortunately, the number of fatalities is up at 103. Total cases by regions show that the Southwest has 1,517 cases, and Lagos continues to top that list and the list for the country. The Northwest follows with 795 cases, and Kano accounts for over half of that number. 353 COVID cases have been recorded in the north central of the region. 316 of those cases belong to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Borno State leads with 116 of the total of 345 cases in the northeast. No new case was recorded in the south-south and southeast as of yesterday, May the 6th. Total cases in the south-south stands at 117 and 18 cases for the southeast. The NCDC website, www.covid19.ncdc.gov.ng, has more details, including advisories on use of cloth face masks. Updating what is going on in the states, the Niger State Task Force has apprehended some violators of the ease on lockdown guidelines. There were travelers coming in from Kano. Let's hear more from Emperor Simon.
The United States government has continued to step up all measures put in place to curb the spread of coronavirus in the states. Among the measures is the ban on interstate travels. However, there have been consistent flouting of the order of the state government by some individuals. Earlier in the day, we received report of 2 vehicles that were apprehended by the task force on COVID-19. One of the vehicles carrying 40 passengers from Kano State was on its way to Lagos State, while the other one carrying 19 passengers from Lagos State was on its way to Kano State. The Commissioner of Health, who was at the scene of the interception, gives us more information on that.
I can't imagine people traveling under cover of tampon, under sacks of rice. This one, they told us they are coming from Kano, all the way from Kano, and they have not been intercepted. All the way, passing all the checkpoints, until when they got to Mina. 40 of them inside truck, covered with tampon. So, for us, we are not going to leave any stone unturned. They are going back to where they come from.
There is also the report of 3 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. Although it is yet to be reflected on the website of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the state government, through the task force on COVID-19, says it has received results of 3 additional confirmed cases as at this time of filing this report.
Yes, those cases are usually, confirmed by NCDC. We are yet to get, direct, information, formal information. But I can assure you, if you look at, the index cases, they are actually originating from other states. They are either, passing through Niger, or that they came from, Lagos or Kano, and then, of course, tried to settle in Niger, and we were able to discover them. Of course, that is the case with the 2 initial, index cases that we had.
Meanwhile, the state government says it has commenced profiling of almajiris in the state, with the aim of ensuring that they are tested and returned to their home states. From Mina, Emperor Simon.
From Niger to Bauchi State, where it's not particularly good news, 10 health workers are now infected with COVID-19 in Bauchi State. Let's get the update on this and the return of calm to Gombe State following the protests of the day before from Hajara Aliyu.
Calm has returned at Kwadan Isolation Center in Gombe State following yesterday's protest. The Commissioner of Health, Dr. Ahmed Ghana, says more medical and security personnel have been deployed to the isolation center and all the needs of the patients are being met. He also added that members of the COVID-19 task force have begun contact tracing of all those who mingled with the infected protesters yesterday at the Kwadan community. Meanwhile, in Bauchi State, there are growing concerns about the rate of infection among medical personnel. 10 health workers have come down with the coronavirus in Bauchi State and 7 are from Azare alone. An inquiry into why all this is happening has been launched.
We realize we have a big problem in the Azare zone. And Azare is the Azare division, the Katagun zone. It's very close to Kano. And most people are going to Kano to do shopping and other things. And we still have problem of how to control infection. We have many doctors and nurses that are infected in the hospital. So today, as my Honorable Commissioner has said, we sent some people, Your Excellency, to go to Azare division. I wanted to go myself together with them to actually find out. And they told me that they still need some training, which we were planning to do training, but they want to go and do a fact-finding mission to find out why is it that so many doctors and nurses are getting infected in that area. And their families are also involved.
There are hints that the problem may be connected to the professional conduct of the health workers, and the Bauchi State government says it is set to train over 100 medical personnel. From Bauchi State, Hajara Aliyu.
Thank you very much, Hajara. Joining me in the studio is a consultant public health physician, Dr. Alera Roberts. Dr. Roberts, thank you for coming in once again.
Thank you for having me, Ladi.
Today we're focused on testing because that seems to come up every now and then, although it also had other ramifications. And I wonder if you think that we are using the correct method. There's been so much debate about the method we're using and how slow it is in terms of being able to achieve the kind of numbers that some of our colleagues in other African countries have achieved. Do you think what we're sacrificing in terms of speed, we're making up for in terms of the thoroughness of the results?
It is what it is, laddie. You really want to put me in a lot of trouble here. However, it is what it is. The fact of the matter is that using the RT-PCR, which is short for the reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction test, is the only molecular biology test that actually picks the virus, the presence of the virus in the oropharyngeal swabs and whatnot. So that is the gold standard of testing. It is a cumbersome test. You take the swab, you have to transport it with a viral transport medium to the laboratory where it's put into an extraction kit, and this requires the trained personnel, the molecular biology scientists to do this. It is what it, and it takes time. That is what it is. As to whether so clearly there are many points in the chain of the test that are going to prove bottlenecks. Do we have enough viral transport media? Do we have enough extraction kits? Do we have enough trained molecular biologists who are ready to work day and night? Are we using the right PCR machines? Are there enough in the country? Can we get more? All these are questions that are beyond the scope of this interview to answer. But look, listening to what Dr. Casimir said earlier, and the method that Ghana, and the former president, I believe it was, the method Ghana is using and the method Nigeria is using, true, every method will have its pros and cons. But, you know, clearly, Ghana has been able to test many more people through the pooled testing than we are doing here. Whether it would work for us here as well, whether the cons, the disadvantages of it outweigh the benefits of it, I'm not a scientist as such, so I can't really tell. But, you know, for the numbers that we're testing, bear in mind that we are still doing the targeted testing where we are looking at cohorts of, those who present and cohorts of suspected cases, you know, contacts and contacts of contacts. So at the end of the day, I'm a public health physician, okay? And being a physician, we treat the patient, not the test. So I'm more interested in us going out and doing the track and trace to find out who is presenting with symptoms and get them into isolation or get them into care in some way. So ultimately, yes, you can do the test. And if it's taking a week, 9 days for the result to come out, it's actually useless to me as a physician, because that test will only tell me where you were 7 or 9 days ago. It doesn't tell me where you are today. But where you are today is what I need to manage. And if you're asymptomatic, I'll just ask you to please stay safe by all the means possible. And this is still the same hand washing, the same face covering, the same hydrate all the time, keep your immune system high. And if you do have symptoms, then we need to do the management, at which point testing is a moot point.
I have enough time to ask you that we seem to have difficulty, I mean, apart from the testing method, which you alluded to when you talked about some of the logistics, the kits, the reagents, and so on, that are involved. So again, those who ask will say, if we can get a homegrown solution, should we possibly explore that so that we get out of this?
Definitely. Hello. If we can get a homegrown solution, book me down. I'm first in line. You know, but having said that, when we say homegrown solution, we still have to get solutions that are effective. Worse than no test is a bad test. You know, because you cannot base any clinical judgment on the results of that test. So yes, I'm all for homegrown. I'm very much a made in Nigeria somebody. But at the same time, let's be frank and prudent. You know, if there are other people who are doing homegrown solutions, and this is, like I keep saying, it's an equal opportunity disease. So homegrown Italian, homegrown UK, homegrown Senegalese, homegrown anywhere, if it works and it's credible and it's accredited by the WHO and NCDC, let's get it as fast as we can. I keep saying faster testing is going to be the game changer in this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roberts. It's, as always, a pleasure having you join us at this time.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, that's that green prediction from the World Health Organization about Africa. Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back. The World Health Organization is warning that the coronavirus could kill between 83,000 and 190,000 people in Africa in the first year, and infect between 29 and 44 million in that same year if containment measures fail. The projections are contained in a new WHO Africa study based on assumptions that containment measures are not put in place or fail. Currently, Africa has reported 52,788 cases and just over 2,000 deaths. Worldwide, more than 3.8 million people have now been confirmed infected, and more than 267,000 have now died.
According to the Food and Agricultural Organization, the pandemic is hitting both the demand and supply sides for meat, as restaurant closures and reduced household incomes lead to lower consumption, and labor shortages on the processing side are impacting just-in-time production systems. In the United States, more than 1 in 5 households is struggling to provide enough food, as the pandemic has left tens of millions unemployed, with many now turning to charities and food banks for help. Over 3.8 million Americans have filed for unemployment, bringing the number of jobless claims to some 33 million since mid-March, when COVID-19 led the shutdowns nationwide. President Donald Trump has now turned his focus on reopening the economy, despite the country's more than 1.2 million confirmed COVID-19 cases. Other parts of the world, Pakistan says it will begin lifting a 5-week COVID-19 lockdown in phases from Saturday, even though the number of cases is still accelerating. Public transport will, however, remain suspended and schools shut. The lockdown remains in most parts of Russia, which today recorded over 11,000 new coronavirus cases. Moscow, the capital, has emerged as one of the worst-hit cities in Europe and remains the center of the epidemic in the country, with over 85,000 cases confirmed. Spain's coronavirus daily death toll fell today to 213, down from 244 the day before. The overall number of coronavirus deaths rose to 26,070, up from 25,857 on Wednesday. And in the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has told the cabinet the government will advance with maximum caution in considering easing the lockdown in England. A similar warning is coming from the Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, who insists she will not be pressured into lifting lockdown restrictions prematurely.
Just 4 days after the launch of the world's tallest donation box, Dubai's Burj Khalifa is set to shine bright with over 575,000 lights as donations continue pouring in to support coronavirus-hit communities in the UAE. The light donations of individuals and companies across the country will secure almost 600,000 meals to the 10 million meals campaign that aims to provide food support for those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. To tell us more, we go to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. We're joined by our correspondent, Maiwa Adegoke. Maiwa, what more can you tell us about this uplifting piece of work?
And pretty much it's one of is already by government of the UAE to ensure that although people affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, loss of work, the shutdown that we had experienced in weeks past, can still keep going. So pretty much this is a donation that is coming from across the world. So many nationalities, so many companies and individuals have been a part of it. For as little as 10 dirhams, you can sort of buy a light on the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. And so far, so good. It's really been an impressive turnout of support for this project. And I'm sure that in the coming days, we're going to see more lights turn on for this good cause.
The other thing I would want to ask you about is that the Expo 2020 obviously is now postponed. But what are the plans for it?
So yes, it's been postponed and a new date has now been confirmed. The new date will be 1st of October 2021 up until the 31st of March 2022. It will still be 6 months. And of course, the Dubai government has also, they've continued to reiterate that they're ready, they're doing everything they can to give a wonderful show. But of course, they have to consider states and countries who are participating, who are concerned that, they have a setback going on because of COVID-19 and the fact that they need to cater for their people. So the Dubai government and the UAE government are largely saying they need to listen to these people and pretty much obey what they're saying. So the new dates have been approved. And I'm sure that this will just give them more time to put in more plans and still give a fantastic show, because their aim really is to give what they call the world's greatest show. And they're already calling it a sort of a global celebration when COVID-19 is over. So they're looking at it now as a celebration, a global celebration that the world can participate in post-COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Maiwa Adegoke, our correspondent reporting there from Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. And do continue to stay safe out there.
Well,
and that's our package on our COVID-19 update tonight. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ladia Keridoluale. We're back tomorrow at noon with another update, and there are other updates at 6 and then at 9 p.m. Good night.